had some problems.
Yes, I am also seeing you after a long time. Otherwise, it was Sayyed and Abbas.
Yeah, because yeah, usually you see me and Awaz in hangouts that are only Hindi only.
Yes.
Hmm. So, welcome to this hangout. Thanks for joining. We have a few questions in the comments on the events page on Google Plus, so we'll take those questions. And in the meanwhile, if you have any questions, welcome Sandeep. Yeah, feel free to ask in between. Okay, so let's see what questions we have in the comments. Okay, so Neeraj is asking, can you tell me if anchor text is a part of search engine algorithm? Okay, Neeraj, since you're here, do you elaborate what do you mean by anchor text being a part of algorithm?
I think he means like if anchor text is like considered when like links are used for ranking and so on.
Yeah, is that your question, Neeraj?
Yeah.
Okay, so anchor texts are important and they definitely play a role in helping search engine understand the content. So, yeah, I think using them wisely uh, is a good idea.
So I
Again,
think what Syed means is as long as it's relevant, it definitely helps your site. So if you're linking to some product site with description about the product, then it's definitely relevant. On the other hand, if you're simply like say having like 20 links in your footer with different anchor text just to like manipulate rankings, then it can have a negative effect. It's basically about how you use it. If you use it in just to let users know of the great content elsewhere, then it's good. If you use it just to like manipulate rankings and not for users, then it can have a negative effect. And but yes, it is used to like in ranking.
yeah, so the basic, I mean, we need to go back to the basics again. I mean, thinking about your user. So, so think about a user when they land on your page. What kind of anchor text would be? So, for example, if you have an About Us page, linking to it with the anchor text About Us makes sense rather than something else, right? So keep it more obvious so people can understand what content they can expect when they click a particular link. That will also help search engines understand your pages and content.
Sayed, actually, I asked this question because I see that for main pages, what Expedia.com has done, they have targeted their four prime priority keywords, and if they have for one page links in interlinking like 1,000 links, so they have just segregated them into four priority keywords in 250 keywords, like 250 keywords on this anchor text, 250 keywords on other keyword, 250 anchor text on other keywords. So this is why I was just thinking that is it really beneficial kind of thing in search engine point of view, or if I have all the links on one anchor text, which is really logical and natural kind of interlinking, so I am just losing any kind of benefit for other keywords, but yeah, getting a telling search engine for one keyword, it is very good thing. But what about other keywords?
No, so I mean I get that like sometimes you'll probably see some websites doing this and ranking well. So it's not that they're ranking because they're trying to like embed hundreds of links or so, but rather they're ranking because their content is already good. And internal links, if like if you're internally linking from one page to other with like hundreds of different like links with different anchor texts, it doesn't really like it doesn't really affect your site negatively so much because it's still like you're just linking internally, but it's not like it's a big positive value add also, because we already can see that even like just 2-3 links explaining the context will give us enough information about that page. We don't need like hundreds of links just, and because we have to anyway uh, we anyway look at the content on that particular page. It's not like we depend only on one link telling us what the page is about, right? So we also look at the content on the page and all that. So it's not like they're ranking because of these links, they're probably ranking despite these links. Take the next question. Since most of the questions are from you, Neeraj, we'll just take other questions and like alternate them.
Yeah, sure.
One question is from David. If I no index all of my low quality and content and promote high quality content, how soon can I expect the Panda algorithm to react? Does it recalculate score every month, 2 months, or 3 months? So David, one thing is Panda is part of our core ranking algorithm. It's not being released like once a year or anything like that. So basically, whenever we crawl your site and index your content and see like fresh new good content, then obviously the changes you make can be reflected in search rankings. So, and regarding no indexing, ideally, if possible, try and fix the content instead of no indexing. Of course, like if it's like there are way too many pages that you think that are not useful to users and it will take too long to fix them and you don't see value in fixing them, then maybe like no indexing is the good way to go. But ideally, I'd say like if possible, fix the low quality pages, and then you can actually see positive change for those particular pages. You can go to Search Console and for the keywords that those pages are supposed to rank, you can check how those pages are doing and so on.
Yeah, and also one thing to remember here is, David, that there is no sure way to know that you are being affected by Panda or Penguin or any specific algorithm. There could be multiple reasons, several reasons why your site may not be doing well in search engine ranking. So it is important to go back and look at your content, just not focus on only on one specific algorithm, but look at it from a usefulness perspective for your users, right? What kind of value you're providing to your users. Again, going back to the basics, So try to look at your content like that. So sometimes it may also happen that you may think that your content is being seen as low quality by search engines and being affected by Panda, but that may absolutely not be the case. The case could be something very different, right? So it is important to analyze your website from a usefulness perspective, from what kind of value you're giving to your users, and then take that approach rather than thinking about algorithms only and search rankings only. And as Ashish mentioned, Search Console is a good place for you to go look at search analytics and see what pages are doing well for what kind of queries, for example, and how you can use that information to basically provide more value to your users.
Yeah. Also, one other issue with no indexing pages is I think if you've read Jennifer Slack's SEM post, I think it was posted in January this year. It gives a full brief on what Panda is about. So you can see that it clearly mentions that a lot of webmasters unintentionally remove pages that Google probably thinks that is good content. So like Syed said, actually like go to the pages that are ranking and like see if those pages provide value to users. So if those pages provide value to users, there's no point in removing them, right? So like look at it from that angle. Check, go to your search analytics page, look at all the top keywords and then the pages that are ranking for those, and see if those pages are actually providing value to users. If they are not, try fixing them, like change the content, add more like value to users on those particular pages. And if there are too many of those pages that are not adding value to users and you can't really fix them or it's taking too long, then maybe you can no index them. But again, be very careful when like no indexing stuff, because you can unintentionally remove pages that are actually good.
Okay, so moving on.
Let's look if we have any. Okay.
Okay, so for the folks who are watching this Hangout live, I see a lot of you are watching this. If at all you're facing any problems in joining this Hangout, please do let us know in the comments on the events page on Google+, so we can look at that. I hope there are no problems, because I see a lot of people are watching this Hangout, but only Neeraj is in here with us in the Hangout.
Yeah, so yes, I think sometimes in most of the offices, what happens is at 11 o'clock, it becomes a little difficult for everybody to just log in and join the Hangout. Sometimes people come office and start working on their own email kind of things. This is why I believe people are not as many as
Okay. Okay. So you think
they should.
this timing is not very great?
Yeah, Sayed, I believe that post 12 was much better than 11 because even today I just rushed to office thinking that I have to join this hangout.
Okay. Okay.
Well,
So great
yeah,
feedback. Thank you very much.
yeah. Thanks.
We have a few more questions from the comment section. One is from Sahil Nair. He's basically asking, downloading websites have duplicate and less thin content, but still they rank. It's exception for downloading websites. No, there's no exception for downloading websites. In fact, like I understand that there are a lot of websites where you have the same content around downloads, and it's spread over, like say 100 websites. So 100 websites have the same content about the same download, and they try and use that to rank. We call that behavior domain crowding, and that's not really, that's actually against the guidelines. So if you actually see like downloading websites that are having the same duplicate content across multiple websites, please report them. You can report them using the web spam report spam extension. We actually take those very seriously. Another question, next question is from Sandeep. My question is related to using same content on my two domains that are targeted to two different countries like US and Canada. Can I use the same content or do I need unique content? It depends. Like if your audience differs from US to Canada and you think your Canada audience needs like different content, like say many times the simple example to use is Canada probably uses metric system, right? So all of the content in your page, you probably like the miles you use kilometers, for pounds you use kgs, and all that kind of stuff. So if you feel like you need to make that distinction for your Canada and your US users, you just need to make sure you have hreflang set up correctly so that Google understands that for American users I need to serve this page, and for Canada users I need to serve this page, and both of these pages are about the same content but are catered to different users. Okay. I have another question from Vishal. I have a disclaimer paragraph on all my pages in the footer section due to some legal reasons. Can it be a problem for my website? No, that's totally fine. Like, a lot of people have paragraphs around disclaimers, cookies, and so on. That's like totally fine. We have some.
We have some more
By the way,
questions.
guys, I'm looking at the chat, and I don't see any questions there. So you guys can just ask questions there too. Actually, there is one question from Ravi Ahuja. Why is one of my blog pages being de-indexed again and again without any notice on Google Search Console? Honestly, without looking at the page, I have no clue why your blog page is being de-indexed. I have no clue actually without looking at the page. So maybe post it in the forum and someone can take a look. Generally, if blog pages are de-indexed if the page is not existing, or if for some reason you violated blogger guidelines and your blog has been removed from there, so obviously it won't show up, like we'll de-index it. But again, so until we actually look at the blog, we will not know why it's been removed. But for any manual actions that we take, we definitely send messages on Search Console. One problem could be like for the notice problem, maybe see if you have the canonical verified in your search console, so that sometimes if you have the canonical, if you don't have the canonical verified, the message can go to that version, and your duplicate site, the one that you verified, may not get the message. So make sure you verify all versions of your all URL versions of your website. But again, yeah, just post it in the forum so that people can actually take it. Another question from Neeraj. With the use of hreflang tag and relationships with my old website, does the page authority also pass or not? Like my old website .com ranking was 5th in India. I launched .in domain and use hreflang, so this position will remain the same or not? Sorry, can you ask the question again, Neeraj, because this is quite confusing. Sorry.
Yeah, so what I understand, Neeraj, what you're trying to ask is basically you have a .com domain which is doing well in search results right now, and you want to do a .in domain and move that content from .com to .in, and you're asking if your website would still rank in the same position as it is doing right now. Is that your question, Neeraj?
He's on mute. Maybe he just answer.
Okay. So, yeah. So as I understood your question, I'll answer accordingly. So if you're trying to move domains, then it is important to tell Google as well that the content has moved from this URL to that URL, and the way to do is do that is doing a 301 redirect, right? So if you're doing that correctly, then I don't see there should be any problem. Of course, there could be some fluctuation of ranking in between while we discover the new pages and we start relating the old page and the new page. So there could be some fluctuations, but if your content is the same, everything is the same, if you're not changing anything there, then hopefully you should your new URL should be ranking well as well. If you have any follow-up question on this, please let us know.
We have a question from Ranjan in the chat. He's basically asking, is Google going to consider AMP in their ranking signal anytime soon? Well, currently AMP is not considered for ranking, and I'm not sure. I personally don't know if it will be considered for ranking anytime soon. But one thing to from your side to consider is forget about AMP as a ranking signal, but just look at it as whether it will help your user experience on your website. And if you think it will, and if you can spend time to actually implement AMP, especially for most of the common CMSs, we've already there are already plugins launched for AMP, so it's pretty easy to implement. So if you think it can improve the user experience, and personally, I think for almost all websites who intend to serve mobile users, it will definitely improve experience. So implementing AMP is something you should consider whether it will affect ranking or not.
Okay, there's another question from Neeraj. He says, when should I expect the ranking change after changing content of a page? In next crawling or any algorithmic update?
It's basically the same thing we said to David. So
yeah,
just focus on. So for most of the normal stuff, whenever we recrawl your website and find more useful content to index, then obviously there you can see a change in your website. But again, like Syed said, don't focus too much on one particular algorithm you've heard about, like Panda or something, so that whatever change you see, you are attributing to just that one particular algorithm. So just focus on your site as a whole, and look at search analytics to track if there's actually change. Your website adding high quality content is bringing you more users for your the keywords that you're targeting. There's a question from Psycho. Does page speed matter? I've seen 10-second load time page ranking one with 400 backlinks from single link. Page speed, of course, matters. So this is how it is. So for most, sorry, let me just move.
Avinash, we hear some background noise. We're muting you. If you have any questions, please unmute yourself and ask.
Page speed definitely matters. So, but it only matters until a certain extent. So it's like, if pages are all loading, like say most of the pages are loading under a second or two, then it will not, like, if like there are 10 pages and one page is loading under a second and another page is loading under like 0.5 seconds, there's not going to be much difference in ranking between those two. But if there is like one page loading in like you said 10 seconds and there's another page loading under 1 second, obviously the 10-second page will have a problem in ranking. But again, just because page speed is bad doesn't mean a site cannot rank number one, because let's say someone searched for something really unique and that page that is really slow is serving that content. Then even though it's slow, it's very, very relevant to users. And unfortunately, it is a bad user experience, but that's the best relevant result that Google can provide. So in some cases, it can rank one. Like say, for example, say you have a query around exam information and way too many people are searching for it and the site's taking too long to load. But it will still try and show that in the top positions because that's the most relevant official site for exam results.
Yes, so one thing to remember is speed is one of the many factors we use again, right? And relevance still matters. So as Ashish mentioned, if your content is more relevant than other pages that are fast, but that their content is not as relevant to this particular query, to this particular user, then you may see results which are slower ranking above results which are faster.
So Avinash asked, what happens if you use the same content with different format like PDFs, PPTs, and infographics? It's still fine. Like so, obviously infographics are a bit hard because everything is in images, and it's harder than for us to index the content inside images as compared to text. So ideally, if you provide good context around the infographics, that would be pretty useful. But in general, like for PDFs and PPTs, we can index them as normal, so it's totally fine. Is it considered duplicate content or syndicate content? Like what is considered duplicate content or syndicate content?
So if you're providing same content in your PDF and your PPT and then same content in infographics, of course, I'm assuming you will have some changes in the content to accommodate, for example, in infographics, and you may use different platforms like social media and stuff like that to spread this content. So of course, if it makes sense for your content to be available in these different formats, and you think there are people who actually need your content in these types of formats, then I think it makes absolute sense to have that content like that. But if you're just, if you have a piece of article that you're trying to make available in PDF, PPT, and then same thing in the infographics as well, just for the sake of you have more content, then I think it doesn't make that much sense. So I think it again goes back to what your users want and can benefit from. If you think these formats are really useful, and being used by your users for the type of content that you're providing, then it absolutely makes sense to have that. But if you have just content that can be consumed in plain text, but if you're simply wanting to provide them in different formats so that you have more content and things like that, then maybe it's not the best use of your time.
Okay, there's a question in chat from Psycho. Will hiding metadata from search results affect rankings? If I added meta revision tag with update, okay, metadata. If I added meta revision tag with updated date, will the crawler take it as HTML5 doesn't support meta revision?
So when you're crawling the pages, we look at a number of things to determine the freshness of your content. And whatever signals you can provide to Google may be useful. I'm not exactly sure if you're using the meta revision tag to determine the freshness of the content as of now, but you can provide, for example, information about updates on your site and through sitemap, right? Or there could be an e-tag that you can use in your headers when you're surveying pages. And these are the signals we definitely look at to determine freshness of your content. Okay. I don't see any more questions in the comments on Google+. Are there any questions in chat?
No.
Okay. So if there are any live questions.
Yeah, I just mentioned some questions. If there is nobody to ask, I'm not able to see actually the comment section in Google Plus where I mentioned. Some questions were regarding hreflang basically with me. So can I ask?
Sure, please. So
Yes,
you already posted those questions in chat.
correct. Chat, right.
Somehow I don't see your question in the group chat here.
No, I just mentioned in that comment section of this Hangout.
Okay, let me check out, relook at the comment section. I will refresh this page and see if you. Okay.
By the way, I have one question. So if it is you are not able to see, let me ask this question.
Yeah, please.
Actually, I am using hreflang for one particular country. So my old page like.com was ranking on that country, but I know that this page is not relevant to that country. I don't know why it was ranking onto that country. So when I expanded to that country, I just created different CCTLD for that country. Now the thing is that when hreflang will execute, all the value of links or all the value of my .com page will be transferred to that new domain, or because it will completely swap that URL, that domain from that country. So it will get its own ranking, or it will get all the credit link juice or different domain authority or different value of my .com domain will be also transferred to that domain.
So you see, the hreflang tags basically tell Google that there are alternate versions of this content in different languages, right? So that may not necessarily mean that the value of a page as being considered in a particular language is also transferred to other languages, right? So for example, if you have a page in English and then you have a page, the same content in Hindi as well. Now imagine the page, the content that you translated in Hindi, there are no other resources on the internet available talking about the same topic as good as you have done in Hindi, right? So your page may become more important and more relevant to be ranked in Hindi. But at the same time, if there are tons of other pages and maybe better pages than your page on the same topic in English, then your page may not rank as well in English. So the same content may do very well in Hindi, but may not do very well in English, right? So this is just one example. So of course, hreflang tags do not mean that all the authority that is being, or the relevance and things like that will also be passed to the content, to the other language content, right? So it depends on, I mean, it will be looked within that language, right? So if you're serving content in Hindi, then we will see at Hindi documents if anything more relevant is available to this user for this particular query. If there is, then we will rank accordingly. If we see your content to be more relevant, then we will rank accordingly. And the same thing will happen independently in English language and in any other languages you expand to. Does that make sense?
They will create or get their own ranking on the basis of their own.
Yes. Yes.
So when hreflang is first executed, why Google recommends that it will swipe your current URL.
Yeah. So what hreflang does is basically tells us that, okay, here we have some content, and the same content is available in these languages as well, right? So it helps Google in serving users the content, the language that they prefer. So as we took the example of Hindi and English, so if you have some content in English, right, and a user is searching for that content, for example, from India, and we know the intent of the user's query is to find content in, say, for example, Hindi language as well, then if you find the same content in Hindi, then we will serve them Hindi content. If you think your content is relevant to that user, we will serve them the Hindi page, because we also know that this user prefers Hindi language content, and this content is available in Hindi, so we better serve them Hindi page than English page. If there was no alternative, if it was only English page, and if you knew that, okay, this user understands English and also reads English content, and it makes sense to serve English page to this user for this query, and there is no Hindi page, then we may end up sending them the English page. So that is how it works. It is not about passing the as you say, the link juice or the authority, and things like that.
One more question was regarding this only. I have one Hindi version and I have one English version.
Okay.
And I have just annotated both of these versions with hreflang.
Mm-hmm.
So so it is okay that if somebody is opening Hindi Google, he is seeing my Hindi page, and if he is opening English Google, he is seeing my English page. This was the target of hreflang basically, and which was in my mind also. But how Google manages and decides if somebody is searching in English Google and typing some Hindi query?
Mm-hmm.
So the ranking of my Hindi page will remain the same, which is in Hindi Google, or it may vary because somebody has searched this Hindi query in English Google.
Again, you see, this is very dynamic and happens on the fly, right? So we again look at a lot of signals to determine if your page is still relevant to this user, although he's coming from, say, for example, google.com or google.co.in, and his preferred language is in English, but the query intent is Hindi, for example. He's searching something which is very specific to Hindi, or he is using English text to write Hindi keywords. Then what we have also started doing to serve especially these kind of queries is we now have tabbed search, if you have seen that, right? So we are serving tabbed search in regions where Hindi is the primary language, because we know a lot of people can read and prefer content, in fact, in Hindi. So we give them options to choose between English and Hindi content, and how it is ranked is, again, just like how we rank other content. So if you think your Hindi content is relevant to other Hindi contents for this particular query, for that user, that place in time, then your page may rank higher. But at the same time, your page may not rank as well, your English content may not rank as well in the English. That's because we found some other content which is more relevant. So it is very dynamic, and I mean, it works independently. We do not look at, okay, if English page, if your ranking English page is at #1 position, then we should rank the alternative of this page in the Hindi language also at #1 position. It does not work like that.
We have a lot more questions, so we'll just take the other ones. We have a question from Nishit. As per Search Console suggestion, I've added versions of my sites, www and non-www. So do we have to add 2 sitemaps for the same? No. So thing is, even if you have, like, say, not just example.com and www.example.com, even if you have something like completely different site, www.nishit.com and www.ranjan.com, as long as you have all those 4 websites verified, you can just submit one sitemap for all those 4 websites. The only criterion here is for you to verify all those websites so that we know those are your websites. So as long as you verify all the websites, you can submit just one sitemap. Maybe, like, you can submit one sitemap index and have like 4 different sitemaps for each of those 4 websites if you want. But The only criterion is as long as you verify all the websites under your account, you can submit just one sitemap for all those different websites.
Also, it is recommended in the specific cases, you gave the example www and non-www versions. It is recommended that you pick one as your primary domain and redirect the other to the primary domain. That will really help Google, index your content properly.
Next, we have a question from Vishal. One of my pages is performing very well in mobile search when someone's typing the query and searching for it, but if someone's searching via voice search, it's not showing for the same query. What can be the issue here? I honestly, I'm not sure, because ideally, as long as the query is the same, search results shouldn't differ too much. Not showing completely is it's really weird. So maybe if you can submit the query and
yeah, so it may depend on a lot of things, Vishal. Again, so just the input method will not change anything in ranking. If you're using if you're using the same device, but if you're using your voice or you're just typing in, that doesn't make any difference in our algorithms, how we rank things. So probably there is more at play that is happening when you're checking your query with voice and with just typing it in using the keyboard. So if you really see this as a problem, or if you see something weird that is happening, then please post that in the forum.
Okay, we have another question from Shetul. We use Magento as an e-commerce platform, and a single product is assigned to various categories, and they have different URLs plus a single product URL. For every single product URL, more than one URL is made. It is something like this: domain, main category, subcategory, and then product, and domain, main category 2, and domain bestseller product. Okay, this led to duplicate content issues. We have canonical tags implemented to avoid duplicate content issues, and all of the above URLs pointed to domain.com/product. So it was decided we keep domain.com/product as a main version to be indexed in search engines. So you basically had multiple URLs for one product under different categories and just that product name. So now you've properly pointed all the URLs to domain.com/product.
Yeah, so basically you have, your question, as I understand, is you have multiple URLs for same content, and then you have now picked one URL as a primary URL. However, you right now see that there are different types of URL patterns that are indexed by Google and being ranked by Google for different products. Now you want to, basically make it into a uniform pattern for all products. What is your best option here?
He's asking if we keep the category URLs even while pointing the canonical tag to the product page, will it affect, will it confuse Google crawlers? I'd say no. So as long as you set up your canonicals properly and make sure it's the same across all products, so it shouldn't
So when you have picked the primary URL, then what you can do, the best thing you can do is do a 301 redirect from all the other URLs to this primary redirect, right? And do the canonical and alternate tags.
No. So that's not. So here he has multiple URLs for the same product under different categories. So 301ing will not be the right option.
Yeah, if you want to keep all of those URLs, right? April, I don't think you're in the Hangout. If you're here and if you could clarify your question a little bit more, that will really help us.
No. So I think here the problem is he has. Okay.
Hey, Shetul.
Hey, if I let me summarize your question. You have let's say 10 products, and each of those products have their own product page, but they also have. They're also under different URLs based on the category they are under. And now you make sure that the product page is the canonical and the category pages are Google doesn't crawl them. But you still want to keep those category pages, and you want to know if it will cause problems around crawling. Is that right?
Yes. So main problem is that the category pages are indexed in the Google right now. So I don't want them to get removed and directly, get a 404. So I have those pages indexed. So the thing is, if I keep that in my website, I keep those category pages in my website structure. Will it affect the rankings, or will it affect the product URLs and confuse the
No,
followers?
it shouldn't, because many websites have say multiple products under a single category, right? So you have
Yeah.
one product page for a product, but like 10 products can come under a single category, and all those like 10 products will be listed under that category URL. So it's totally fine. Like it actually makes sense to do that, because sometimes people would like to look at a complete category rather than just a single product. So having that URL can actually help your users, and that's totally fine. In fact, it's not even considered as duplicate content, because it's not just that product you have, your company has that on that page. So having that URL can actually help your users. And yeah, I mean, as long as it's relevant and you don't have like no sorry, your voice is breaking. If you don't mind, can you just type?
Uh,
Uh,
my voice is breaking, or
no, hold on. I think there is some background noise from the member. We'll just move.
I think it was from Amit. I muted him right now. Okay, so it is completely fine that if I have categories in the product URLs, and they are all pointed to the main product, which is domain/product with canonical tag, right?
So again, like as long as if you think the other category pages provide value to your users, keep them. Don't like remove them. But
Okay.
that's your, so like think if users get those pages, and if will they find value on those pages. Like if you think that is the case, then just keep them. There's no point in removing those pages.
Okay, yeah.
You're asking what is my best option here, to keep the old URL with the category path in the site structure, or shift the new ones?
Yes.
Yeah. So what do you mean by?
So that's what I was asking. That should I keep the category URLs in the site structure, or move them to the main canonical one, which is domain/product, which are beside?
Again, like I said, so if you think the category pages are useful for your
Yeah.
users, keep them. If you do not
Okay,
think
yes.
they're useful, then just point them to the canonical one.
No, I have already pointed them to the
Okay,
canonical tags. Yeah, and okay, yeah, that's fine.
We have a question from Rajesh. Why is Google ranking websites which are copying our content instead of our own original websites? This is an age-old question, right?
Yeah. So I think we have answered this question multiple times. Again, as we said, it depends on a lot of factors. What websites rank. So sometimes you may see the original posters of the content. Their websites may not rank, but that content is reflected somewhere else on the web, and those pages are ranking, and for legitimate reasons this may happen. However, if you think that there are some websites that are actually copying your content without adding any value add, then you can report to us those kind of URLs using our spam report tool. Or if you see your copyrighted content is being, your copyright is being violated, then you can do the DMCA request and take that path as well. So it really depends on a lot of factors, what your content type is, what your content is, how it is being reflected, things like that. So if you really think that it is a big problem for your website and it is being illegally used, then also try to post that in our forum so that we can take a closer look.
Hello. Hello.
Hey, who's this? Amit, you want to ask some question?
Yes, sir. Actually, my question is, if any website is giving 5.3 error continuously, So will that affect the rankings or the website in any way in terms of Google search results?
Okay, so if you have these kind of errors, then of course, I mean, we may not be able to crawl and index that particular page. Yeah, and if it were an index and if it was useful content, then maybe there was a chance that your page may rank for some queries. In that sense, yes, it will affect your overall traffic from search engines. So, sorry?
And I have one more question. That is, I have seen some sites which are completely using keyword stuffing in their meta tags. In their meta titles, they are completely adding a set of around 50 keywords in everything, even in open graph tags and everything. They are doing keyword stuffing, and they are ranking good. So why is that Google is not taking actions against those sites?
Okay, so you mean to say you're seeing keyword stuffing in the meta description tag and the title tag?
Yes,
Okay.
a lot. And still they are ranking well in local search and well in organic.
Okay. So the thing here is, it may not be because of those keywords that they have that they are ranking, but it may be due to other factors as well. So, for example, if there is a really, really good page on a particular topic, we may rank it for its content, and that page may also have some keywords, you know, in its title and its meta description tag and stuff like that. So it may not only because of that. So there is no way, you know, for us to determine if that page is ranking only because of these keywords that they have in their title and description. There may be other factors that are affecting it. And having some keywords in your title and description is not bad all the times. There may be some times that you may have to have some keywords in your title and description, right? And also, if you have a good title and then it may have some keywords that users may use in their search queries, that is still relevant to your content, and that is actually a good practice. So if you think about your users and think about your content, okay, what are the keywords that people may use to search this type of content, and try to incorporate those keywords into your content and your title, that's actually a good thing.
So what I am currently following is 600px in terms of meta title. That is the standard 600 pixels.
Okay.
So that is the standard that Google doesn't truncate your meta title in the SERP. But what I see as the competitors are doing, they are doing say 4 times longer title, and they are ranking. And there is nothing as such. I haven't seen any citation flow or any review flow or any good content on those sites, but still they are ranking good. They are not being penalized. Not even they have a good link flow to the page. Nothing they have done. They have just keyword stuffing even in the content, in the title, in all the tags itself. So I was very curious as in why they are not being penalized in spite of disobeying so much.
So speaking purely for the titles and descriptions, so titles are like, again, just because you provide one title, like I said, just because you provide one particular title with a lot of keywords doesn't mean we'll show the exact same title in SERPs. So for titles, sometimes we even pick based on the actual title of the page, the like anchors, the text links that are pointing to that particular page. It depends. So we look at a lot of information and then pick titles that are relevant to that particular search result. So sometimes for different search results, the title for a particular page can change. Regarding why they're ranking, it's definitely not because they're stuffing keywords in their title. That's actually like, when you think about all the content they have on their page and all like the links they have and all those things, titles are very, very insignificant when you compare it to the whole picture.
I agree completely to your thought.
So if you, but again, like it's not out of the question that someone who's trying to manipulate rankings are probably ranking now. But we, at least from our side, we try to keep a check on things, and whenever someone's like ranking, they generally don't stay at that position for very long. But if you think you've seen like legitimate cases of people manipulating and still ranking, please report them. That's all the guidelines.
Okay, thank you.
So we're running out of time. I'll take one question from Vishal from the comments section. He basically asks, I have a sitemap where last modification dates are not automatically updated, but the content is updated frequently. Should I remove the last modification date from sitemaps? If you like don't, so honestly, last modification dates are optional, and Google may not use them all the time because many times webmasters are not accurate with those dates. So this is like many times it's like not accurate information for us. So this is not something we consider significant. So if you are, if you're feeling it hard, if you think it's hard to maintain this information, update this information frequently, just like you can stop using it. It's not going to affect your crawling because we have other ways to like detect fresh content on your website and regularly crawl and index your website. In fact, like some of the other things like change frequency and stuff in your sitemaps, they matter even less. All right, guys. I do not. Okay, there's one question from the chat. Will my duplicate content page rank if I add the canonical page of the main post? I'm not sure I follow the question, but I think it's basically if there's a main page and if there's a canonical page for that and there's a duplicate content page, will the duplicate content page rank? Is that what you're asking?
After you have added the canonical tag. So basically, when you do the canonical, we may again not take that as a directive, meaning we may not, in all scenarios, we may not consider whatever you have given as canonical. We look at other signals as well to determine what should be the canonical page.
Yeah, I can give a simple example. So let's say you have abc.com and abc.com/a, and you've pointed abc.com as the canonical, but for a user, your abc.com is redirecting to the /a version. Then it's like we are getting mixed signals. Like from one side, you're saying abc.com is the canonical, but the users are seeing abc.com/a. In that case, we'll make a choice based on some factors and pick abc.com/a, which is, it's duplicate page for you, but because users are seeing that, we'll show that in search results instead of abc.com. Does that make sense? Okay, we're almost out of time. We have one last question from Vaishal. My website has so many pages in different languages. One Russian keyword is ranking in Google Russia, and it doesn't relate to the content. Due to irrelevancy, bounce rate is so high. Does this affect overall website performance? I mean, like, see, if you have 100 good pages and you have like one Russian page which is irrelevant and it's, people don't like that page, that's not really going to affect your other pages too much. But if all of the content on your website is like that, then obviously, like, we'll try and not rank that page because you yourself are saying it's not relevant, right? Okay, we're out of time. Thank you all for joining us. Thanks, Neeraj, Amit.
Thanks.
Thank you, Ashish. Thank you, Syed.
Right.
Thank you.
We'll have another Hindi hangout in a few weeks, and you can just, if any of you guys like who are in the chat or who are watching, if you're feeling uncomfortable with the English ones, you can actually, even in this hangout, you can just ask your questions in Hindi too. But we have a Hindi only hangout in a couple weeks. Please join us there. See you guys.
Great. Thanks for joining.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Video chat.